Hi, I'm Dana. I am going to take you through a brief introduction into the deep drive that you're going to get from Brian in a few minutes on the UMC Outer Loop. So UMC stands for, wait, what? I have a smudge under my eye? Oh, let's get that monkey out of the room right now. Yes, I have a shiner. I have a newly rebuilt shoulder. Yes, it happened at a racetrack. Yes, I was driving super fast that morning, if I do say so myself. And no, it didn't happen in a car. Not going to tell you how it happened because it was really dumb. But vanity isn't going to stand in the way of me having some fun and giving you a brief introduction into what you're going to see with Brian's Deep Drive. So UMC, Utah Motorsports Campus, is the same as Larry Miller. A lot of old schoolers still call it Larry Miller. Whatever, we're going to call it UMC. We're talking today about the outer loop. So we also have a deep drive on the full configuration. There are 4 configurations at UMC. This time we're talking about the outer loop, which is super similar to the full configuration, except there are 15 turns, not 23, and it's about 3.048 miles. Other than that, a lot of the turns are very, very similar, but I'm going to warn you right now, watch out for witchcraft. It's right around number 7, depending on which configuration you're doing. But witchcraft in this configuration takes me by surprise every single time. In this configuration, it's a super wide sweeping, like 90 mile per hour turn and it's a right turn, which I find more difficult to hang on to because I'm little and I slide around the seats a bit too much. But it's a right turn that often has people going off to the left. So be careful of witchcraft. It's a tricky one. As always, UMC tracks are counterclockwise. As always, they're at altitude, 4,400 feet, which means your car is going to perform differently than if you are in the middle of the desert in California. Also, Utah has lots and lots of weather, extreme. Never can count on the weather being the same 2 days in a row. Fastest time on this configuration in a really fast car is right around 2 minutes, give or take. In a slower or a street car, you're going to see right around 2:20 or so. All right, if you have not yet had the pleasure of watching one of Brian's deep drives, enjoy. Fasten your seatbelt, harnesses, whatever the case may be. Brian has a gift for taking you into the nuances that will improve your track time, and he does it in a really fun manner. So get ready and enjoy Brian's deep drive into the UMC Outer Loop.
Okay, let's get rolling. One flying lap in a spec Boxster makes a whopping 200 horsepower. Here's what I'd like you to do when you watch this lap, which takes approximately 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Number 1, focus on your visual cues. When you look out the windshield, focus on where you would be looking if you were driving this car. I would suggest scanning back and forth with your eyes, especially looking through the apex to the exit of the corner. Try to imagine what the exit of the corner looks like and the arc your car will take in order to get you to that exit. Also, focus on every flag worker station and the brake markers. This track has brake markers at select corners, starting with a 3 to a 2 to a 1. Find any other reference points that you can on this track. There aren't that many, unfortunately, because we're in the middle of the desert, but you'll have some pretty mountains in the background. Next, you can watch this video as many times as you want. Listen to the sound of the engine, the shift points, especially the downshifts, and also when does the throttle trail off into the braking zone, and when do we pick up throttle on the exit. All of these cues will happen with the audio. Enjoy, put on your seatbelts, let's get started. In this video, what you're looking for, this is a spec Boxster. It's a 5-speed manual. It makes 200 horsepower, fairly low powered. Outside temperatures around 100 degrees. The car will be making far less power than if it was, say, 40, 50 degrees, which in Utah is fairly common to have huge temperature swings throughout the season. You'll notice the exit speed on the final corner here, approaching the main straight. We're at 73 miles per hour. That's pretty quick. Now notice also, we've tracked out all the way to the second candy stripe. When you're watching videos, pause them or slow them down and find out what the surface variations look like. Here you can see that there's 2 levels of candy stripes, and the second level drops off about an inch. So you're going to feel that in the car. I run over both of them because look how wide that is. 2/3 of a car length of extra track out can be attained if you use this. I see so many drivers track out to that white line, completely giving up a full car width of extra room to track out and get to throttle that much sooner on the exit of this corner, which allows us to get to 73. Now, I'm going to show you the video in real time and annotate as we go and give you some ideas of what you can look for. Long straightaway, 3/4 of a mile. There's the start-finish line up there. You want to know the flag workers' tendencies and how they move their arm before they wave that flag, so go look at them before you get out on track. This is an extremely long straightaway, so you'll be in 5th gear. Listen for the downshifts, look for the brake markers. We're going to go to 3rd gear. We rotate a lot, get down on this curb on the left. There's a cone, don't pay attention to cones because they move. Track all the way out here, prepare for turn 2, Dreamboat. Slight lift, 4th gear, full throttle, track out, hustle back over to the right. Look at the entry to this corner. You're going to run over the curb a little bit and track all the way out to the second candy strip on the right. This is basically a straightaway at this point. Full throttle all the way down. We'll probably get close to 105 miles per hour or so before we do a threshold braking. This is a really tight hairpin that opens up, so use the curb, track all the way out on the exit, ignore that second apex, full throttle, use that candy stripe on the exit, get back over gradually to the left. You're going to do a threshold braking here, but off the brakes, trail brake in, rotate a lot. There's low traction here, run over the curb, track all the way out to the second or candy stripe. It will ruffle the car, but that's okay. Approaching the most important corner, Witchcraft, high-speed right-hander. We're going to go to 4th gear, slight lift, full throttle through this thing, kiss that curb, track out, get back over 2/3 of the way to the right, brake hard, get all on that curb, first attitude, get all on the second attitude and the third. I like to run over that curb as well. Track out to the candy stripe, stay on it, full throttle. We're going to downshift to 3rd gear here, boom, on the curb, eat it up, track all the way out on those candy stripes. Full throttle, we're approaching a braking zone, which is a high-speed left in the 70s. Use the curb a little bit if you can, but track all the way out past those candy stripes on that corner, and then just hug the inside rail here because it's a slow corner. Burst of full throttle here. We're going to brush the brakes to rotate the car, get down in this banking for the final corner approaching the straightaway, and our track out speed at the exit is a little slower than the first time, about 72. Hope that helps. Find your visual reference points and see how much information you can absorb from any track on any track video you find on YouTube. We're on the main straightaway. Again, very long. You could drink a cup of coffee on the way down the straightaway, 3/4 of a mile. We have a lot to cover, starting with turn 1, which is way far up the road. So grab a Red Bull, cup of coffee, adult beverage, whatever, and relax and get ready to have a deep dive breakdown starting with turn 1. We'll go full speed to start with and then back it up and break it down. So again, long straightaway, we're approaching start finish line, which is right up here. Boom, start finish, prepare for turn 1. Threshold braking. We're going to get a good rotation and then get down on this curb. It's banked. We're going to track out as we unwind the wheel, get to full throttle, and exit all the way to the candy strip. Now I'm backing this up, and we'll look at the approach for turn 1. First of all, you'll notice that they do have brake markers. There's the 1 marker. I'm backing it up so you can see that there's a 2 and a 3. My advice, depending on how your eyes move and how your brain processes information, in my view, vision is one of the most critical and often overlooked parts of performance driving. And I think it is so important that we need to spend some time focusing on optimal techniques. I think most people are taught to look for these braking points and determine the start of braking. I have learned from several other very high profile coaches to focus more on the end of braking zone and where you want to be turning the car in for the corner, and at what speed should you be when you start turning the car in. Most people, when they're new to a track, overslow the car. Obviously, they're a bit intimidated, they're nervous, it makes perfect sense. So you might start braking all the way back here at the 3. I think that it's important to, first of all, focus on where your vision is pointed. I'm looking, first of all, there's the flag worker. So on your outlap, be sure to wave to that person and acknowledge them. They work their butts off for you. There's a car up here on the road that's already in turn 1, probably down by the apex. I'm looking at that. And mainly I'm trying to look through the corner, meaning I want to predict where I end up on the exit of the corner and how I'm going to arrive there. So I'm sort of processing the exit, where the apex will be, and where I have to start turning in order to get to the apex. My eyes are never looking over here to the right because I'm going to be headed to the left. And your car follows your eyes. So that would be my advice. Scan left to right, constantly be looking back and forth real quick with your eyes. And that will help you process more information, and it reduces the cognitive load on your brain as well. So you can spend more energy driving and less energy trying to process what your car is doing. All right, so let's go through this. We're threshold braking, meaning we're maximum brake pressure, probably engaging ABS. And I've started the brakes. Looks like I'm a little bit past the 2. So we're approaching the 1. Back up and see exactly where we started braking. This is a fast car, by the way. We're cooking here. We're going about 148 when we start to brake. I'm a little before the 3, but again, I'm not paying attention to that. I'm looking through the corner, and I want to predict when am I going to get off the brakes. So we're going frame by frame. Maximum brake pressure, I realized right there, I overslowed the car just a tad, so I released my brake pressure to make a minor adjustment. And that's something that I will work on, and everyone should, is to start the braking so you have a consistent full pressure and then start gradually releasing. It shouldn't be a double brake like I'm doing here where you brake, release, brake, release. So I make a minor adjustment here, and then I continue back to full braking. And now I'm going to start my gradual release of the brake pedal as I start turning in. So here we go. We're starting to turn the wheel a tad. Smooth hands on the entry. Now, what do you see here that's unique? Number 1, we've got a curb. It's a long curb. It's a long corner. I like to get on this curb a little bit because your left front tire is going to be very light going through this relatively high speed 70 plus mile per hour corner. The corner also is fairly lengthy in duration. The other thing that's most exciting about this is the designer of this track did a wonderful job of making this track fun, fast, and flowing by creating banking in almost every corner. Some are exceptions, but this corner is no exception. It's the rule. There's banking to your benefit. So get in the banking. And that means it's a long corner. It has significant banking. You'll have a lot of traction. It's a fairly high speed corner. So it doesn't make sense to be super late on your apex way out here. And in fact, some people spin out because they go too late on their apex in this corner. They overslow the car and then they try to crank the wheel to get down to the apex, and then they lift the throttle. All these errors compound and then they spin off and they end up somewhere out here in the gravel. So I'd rather see you turn in smoothly, get down in this banking, kind of ride the curbing around a bit. And then when you get to the apex, you can start feeding in full throttle as the track starts to flatten out. And then you have a really nice, fast, smooth exit to the candy strips on the right. So let's watch this. So we're giving full throttle now, track all the way out to the candy strips. So let's back this up frame by frame and see how are we approaching the apex. Notice we're down here pretty early earlier than you would typically see an instructor teach if you were looking at a classical driving line. That's again because we have this positive banking. We also have a very long, fairly gradual high-speed corner. So we're not going to be just coasting all the way down to the apex like we'd be in a really sharp corner that's short. This corner is really long and fast, and it's fairly gradual. It also sort of opens up on the exit. So we can carry a lot of speed through here. I'm going 75. By the way, this speed would be the same within 2 to 3 miles per hour, even in my slow car, which is a spec Boxster, which only has 200 horsepower. This car has 425 and it runs on slicks. But even in the spec Boxster, which runs on a dot tire, fairly skinny tire, by the way, we can carry approximately 72 to 73 miles per hour through this entire corner. So not a lot of difference. Also, the line isn't different. In the spec Boxster, our turn in is very similar. The line through this corner is very similar, and the exit of the corner is very similar. So I'd like to emphasize that a lot of people make so much emphasis on the driving line, the optimal line. The reality is if you drive the car at the limit, the line sort of takes care of itself. The line is the consequential benefit of driving the car at the limit. And I'll explain that in more detail as we go through this. So we're getting down to the apex and we're starting to gradually feed in throttle. And by this point, we're going to be full throttle approaching the track out. The key here is to use the entire track width on the exit. You've got a nice candy strip here. It's relatively smooth and you can run over it. I would suggest creeping up on this, move over 6 inches at a time. So start getting to throttle sooner on the exit until your car is pushed all the way out to the exit of this track. If you don't go all the way out to the exit, that means you're not getting to throttle soon enough and you're giving up precious speed. Be careful not to go 2 wheels off on this corner, however, because this gravel is fairly deep. And if you go off there, it often results in a spin. So I wouldn't suggest doing it. I would suggest kissing this track out curb initially and then creeping up maybe over to the middle of the track out candy stripe. Okay, so I'll back it up and show that one more time at full speed, and then we'll move on to corner 2. By the way, corner 1 is called Sunset Bend, and I'll annotate that. Backing up. One last time, full throttle, and then we'll go for turn 2. Fast entry, roll speed through here, start applying throttle, track all the way out to the exit. Great. Now we're done with turn 1. We're headed toward turn 2. That is called Dreamboat. Another very high speed corner. It's gradual and it opens up a little bit on the exit. It's a really fun corner. However, it's a little bit off camber. This is one of the exceptions to the rule of where the designer created positive banking to let you go faster. Turn 2 is a slight off camber corner, so you actually lose a little bit of traction on the entry to turn 2. But it's still a high speed corner, and the technique for entering turn 2 depends on your car. First and foremost, in the car I'm in, this is fast car. I'll call it a fast car, and then we'll talk about slow cars. And when I say slow car, I'm not disparaging the drivers of slow cars. I love driving a slow car fast. It's really, really fun. It's a spec Boxster. Mazda Miata is another great example of a slow car, but you can hustle a Miata around this track. If you're in a slow car, you probably don't need to brake before the entrance to turn 2. You might brush the brake just a tad to set your speed and get the front wheels to bite just a little bit to get you to turn in better. In this car, I'll be carrying a lot of speed, so I actually lightly brake before I turn in to 2. It keeps the car flat, balanced, neutral. It doesn't upset or irritate the car. Allows me to have all 4 wheels on the pavement grabbing for traction. But again, the braking technique on a fast corner is usually lighter brakes earlier, soft brakes, and you want the car to remain flat. So we'll watch this at full speed and then we'll break it down. Brush the brake off, start feeding in throttle, track all the way out to the left. We will watch that again at full speed. So we're going to move all the way back to the left side of the track at full throttle, lightly brush the brake pedal, turn in real smoothly to the entrance of turn 2, and then carry a lot of speed, kiss the curb on the right, and allow the car to be pushed all the way to the left as you feed in full throttle. So move to the left, brush the brake straight line, turn in, get the throttle real fast on the exit here, all the way out, and then you're setting up for turn 3. All right, so we've done 2. Let's watch 3 at full speed, and then we'll break it down. Turn 3 is called workout. And as you can see, it's a nice left-hander here that leads onto a very long section, which is crucial for this. In fact, I would suggest turn 3 might be the most important corner on the track because of this really long straightaway after it. I'll show you what I mean. The way I prioritize corners, by the way, I look at the entire track and I try to determine which ones are going to be the most challenging for people to complete in a quick way. Which ones are the scariest, fastest corners? Usually the fastest, scariest corner that precedes a long straightaway is going to be the most important corner to prioritize because people tend to overslow and then they compromise their speed all the way on the ensuing straightaway. So if you can get comfortable in high speed corners, especially high speed corners that lead onto long sections of straightaways like this one, your lap times are going to improve substantially. So turn 3, as we look at it here, it is a tight left-hand corner. We're starting the approach from the far right-hand side. Try not to run over the candy strips on the right preceding turn 3. They do get quite a bit bumpy. Plus you need traction to do a little bit of braking here if you're in a fast car. And in fact, if I'm even in a Boxster spec, I will brush the brakes on the entry to turn 3 to settle the car down. So back it up. Here's turn 3, and as we exit turn 2, we're faced with the prospect of getting back over quickly to the right-hand side of the track because this left-hand turn is just so crucial. We want to make sure we're set up perfectly for that. So we want to get all the way back to the right, get our hands straight, get parallel with the candy stripe on the right-hand side. Don't run over it. I like to brush the brake pedal softly and early before we start turning in and get off the brakes. See how I'm coming off of them? And now my hands are turned very smoothly, gradually, and we're approaching a nice banked entry to turn 3. And this corner holds a lot of speed. We're going 86. Even in the spec Boxster, it's like 83. So fast corner, regardless of the car you're in. Now, if you're on street tires in a street car, don't try to take this corner at 86 miles per hour. You'll fly off the track. You'll be going more like 75, maybe something like that in a street car on street tires. I'm on slicks. Now we approach the apex here, and it's a long corner, as most are here at UMC. So we want to get down in the banking, hold the traction, hold a lot of speed. You can kind of kiss the curb on the left. It's relatively flat and gradual. So it does not upset the car very much, particularly since the weight of the car is now transitioned to the right-hand side. So if we hit a minor curb on the left, it doesn't upset us that much. Full throttle is as early as you can humanly possibly get to the gas pedal. Again, we are trying to optimize the straight line speed on the exit of 3, carrying it all the way down past turn 4, which is not really a turn. It's just a suggestion. And turn 5 is a hairpin. So you want to go blasting down this and exit all the way out to the first candy stripe at the exit of 3. The first one is a little bump, 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 bump. Not too bad. It doesn't upset the car much. So you can run over this, especially if you've unwound your hands and they're pretty straight. If you get all the way over to the right-hand one, then things get a little nasty. It's a bump, bump, bump. It's very steep, abrasive, and a lot of people do go off at the track of the exit of turn 3. And the gravel out here is pretty deep. So if you spin out, sometimes you might even get stuck out here. A little off-roading adventure. Try not to do that. Okay, so we've exited turn 3. And as we come out, we're going to see this thing. It's a kink. They call it turn 4. It's called Scream. It's a flat out corner. I don't care what kind of car you're in. This is really not a turn. It's just an extension of the straightaway. You're going to be blasting through this at full throttle. It's not scary. Just make sure you make it as smooth as possible. And then you're going to track all the way out to the right-hand side because this is a fairly lengthy straightaway and you'll be going really fast at the end of this. And this car will be going, we hit 127 as our top speed. Again, this is the exit of turn 2. We're headed into 3. Get back to the right, light brush the brake, turn in smoothly, stay down in the banking, full throttle, exit all the way to the right. Disregard this turn, just keep it smooth. Exit all the way to the right, long straightaway, full throttle, and prepare for this next section, which is turn 5, called the Black Rock Hairpin. This is one of the gnarliest hairpins around because it has a very steep curb on the left. You'll see that as I run over it. It has a very peculiar exit, which most newbies really don't understand how to exit this corner. So I'm going to break down the pitfalls to avoid so you can maximize your exit speed on the Black Rock Hairpin. This is a very slow corner in the low 50s to mid 50s. So really we want to do a really late apex and make sure we get the car to pivot on the front wheels as we trail brake into it. So you get a lot of rotation early on the turn in. And then we want to try to get to full throttle on the exit as soon as we can. Those are our goals for a hairpin following a long straightaway. Let's watch it at speed. Full braking, trail brake in, a lot of rotation, late apex, full throttle, hold full throttle all the way on the exit. All right. Now I'm going to go frame by frame and talk you through it. Full throttle. You'll notice candy stripes on the right. You will notice a brake marker. As we're coming up on the right-hand side, there's a 2. Again, I don't look over there. Some people do. Personal preference. I think it's a disservice to spend a lot of time focusing on the beginning of braking point because that's going to change depending on what speed you're approaching the corner. You need to get your brain recalibrated to try to predict what speed you need to enter the corner at and back it up from there. And where do you need to start braking so you can end the braking zone at the appropriate speed. That comes from experience and just doing a whole lot of laps. And then your brain will start to memorize automatically. It'll be an autonomic process. You won't have to think about the start or braking point. So for newbies, it can be beneficial to look at the start or braking point. And if you overslow the car, you'll know you can brake a little bit later. But for advanced drivers, the more advanced you become, I think the less you start to look the opposite direction that you're going to be turning the car. So I'm going to be looking more to the apex and all the way through it to where I want to be going rather than where I don't want to be going. So here we go. We're coming in hot. And right before the 2, that's where it looks like I'm threshold braking, maximum brake pressure. We'll be carrying that all the way down until we start turning in. And when we start turning in, we're going to be gradually reducing that brake pressure. That's called trail braking. And that'll keep a little bit more weight on the front nose of the car and allow the car to pivot on that axis on the front. It allows us to turn the car more quickly and carry more speed on the entry of the corner. So as you can see, I still have a little brake pressure, but now I have a lot of steering input, and I'm doing a late apex because this is a real tight corner. But the exit of this corner, as you look at the track map juxtaposed against this video, look at my line in red. We are going to be getting to full throttle about 2/3 of the way through this corner. You can see there's a cone there on the left. I don't look at cones. Cones move. Cones are ephemeral. Don't look at cones. A cone can get blown over and you would be completely lost in the next lap. So I would highly suggest eliminate from your mind the idea of looking at apex cones on tracks, because they're never going to be the same the next time you come back. So as we come around this, I know it's about 2/3 of the way through the corner. I'm going to start feeding in the throttle, and I've done all my turning now. I'll start unwinding my hands, reducing my steering input as I increase my throttle input. There's an inverse relationship always between more throttle means less steering, more braking means less steering, more throttle means less steering. All these things are inverse, and you want your hands to straighten out as quickly as you can, because the car always goes fastest in a straight line with the pedal to the floor. Now, as we exit, we're going to let the car drift all the way out. You'll see here that on the left, it looks like another corner, right? Another apex, but it's not. This is not a continuation of that corner. It's a false apex. You don't even need to consider that it exists, because we're already at full throttle. We are being pushed to the edge of the track because of that, and we're carrying 64 miles per hour. If I slowed down and tried to hit that apex where the arrow is, I would have to lift off the throttle, turn the wheel more, and that would just postpone me carrying more speed down the straightaway. So this is not a true corner nor an apex, so you should ignore it. Focus on tracking out all the way. And here's the exit. We'll keep going out all the way to the candy stripe on the right. Okay? At full throttle. We'll back that up one more time. Full speed, talk you through it. Full throttle, straight line threshold braking. Start releasing the brake pedal as you turn hard into this corner. Get a little bit on the curb. Feed in the throttle. Exit full throttle. Track all the way up to the candy strip on the right. Got it? Good. Now we're approaching the next one. This is a really tricky section. It's turn 6, called right hook and knockout. It's a double apex corner. You can take it in one of 2 different ways, maybe 3 different ways. I'm going to teach you somewhat of a traditional entry to this corner, which focuses on exit speed. So the approach for this, by the way, this corner is a right-hander with very low traction. It's kind of an annoying corner because you want to be going faster than you are, and you keep kind of feeling for traction with the steering wheel and the throttle and modulating them, and it's just like kind of upsetting to think, gosh, I wish I could be going a little bit faster. But it's a low grip surface. It's a little bit off camber. There's a big curb on the right. When you exit this corner, it's a little sketchy if you hit the rumble strips on the left. So let's watch it again, and then I'll break it down. So you want to brake as hard as you can here. You want to trail off the brakes as you rotate a lot. Get down a little bit on the curb and start feeding in full throttle as you track all the way out. So it's not overly complicated, but it's not a super fun corner. Let's put it that way. And I think I've heard that from like dozens of different people. So as we come in, first of all, we've exited turn 5, Black Rock. We're all the way to the right. We have to boogie over to the left to prepare for our entrance. You don't have to jump over to the left. I see a lot of people just quickly crank the wheel so they can set up for the next corner. You can wait and continue, the straightaway in a straight line, because again, the car is the fastest in a straight line with the wheel perfectly straight. So anytime you turn the steering wheel to prepare for the next corner, what are you doing? You're slowing down the car. I like to postpone slowing down the car by extending any straightaway that I can. So I'm going to wait just a second here before I start getting over to the left, because that's slowing me down a little bit. And I'm going to approach this corner far left. I'm threshold braking. And as you can see, I'm kind of turning in a little bit early. The surface of the track on the way far outside gets marbly, and there is just less grip out there. I've tried it way out to the left. I've tried it way down on the inside. I've kind of found the sweet spot to be around the middle to 2/3 of the way on the left to initiate the turn in on this corner. Plus, it sort of cuts the distance of the corner if you can start a little bit more on the inside, because this is a fairly long corner. You're in it for several seconds. And it's also really slow. Look at our speeds, we're only in the 50s. So I want to gradually turn in. I'm rotating a lot. I'm feeding in a little bit of throttle here, holding about 55, 56. I like to run over this curb a little bit. It's fairly steep. Some people suggest that you don't hit this curb at all, including some professional drivers. If you're driving a Mazda Miata or a spec Boxster, I would be all over this curb. Some of the older cars too, the front right tire will actually lift off the ground. It's not even on the ground. So you wouldn't even feel this curb if you run over it in a really soft car, you know? So play with it, feel for traction. I think it all comes down to, if you hit a curb, does it upset the car? Yes or no? If it does, don't hit it. If it doesn't, and you have good car control and you can get down 2 more feet closer to the apex because you're using the whole track, then by all means try to use the curb and see if you can do it. Now I'm starting to feed in a little bit of throttle coming out of this corner. It's still really, really slow. And as we exit, we're full throttle. You can see the gradient on these rumble strips. It's pretty severe. And if you run over the left one here, the first one, it's perfectly fine. If you go all the way over to the second one on the left, it's a pretty bumpy ride. And you want to make sure your hands are almost perfectly straight if you get over to the second one, or you're going to fly off the track. Let's go frame by frame through Witchcraft, the approach, the brush of the brakes. In a fast car, a brush of the brakes. In a slow car, Boxster Spec or Miata, it's a slight lift, but no braking because you're not going fast enough. And this corner is exceptionally fast. Let's look at the approach as we come in. We're full throttle, and try to find your reference points. This corner is somewhat blind. It's slightly off camber. It's fairly lengthy, and it's extremely high speed. I think all those things cumulatively make for a very challenging corner. You can see that it's sloped to your disadvantage on the entry, a little bit off camber, which creates a little bit less traction. And notice what I've done here. I'm full throttle, well in advance of the turning. I am brushing my brakes to set my speed. I'm at 108. We're going to reduce that speed down to around 100, get off the brakes, and now we have a perfectly flat car, perfectly balanced, maximizing our traction. As we turn in very smoothly and progressively with the steering wheel, notice how my hands are barely turned up there. We're approaching a fairly late apex toward this curbing on the right. You don't want to run over this curb. It's one of the rare instances where I would advise against it, because if you get upset on the exit, you can have an off-track excursion, and I haven't done it, but I've heard it's pretty nasty. So we want to get close, within an inch of the curb, but not hit it. And we want to get to full throttle right as we come out and exit this corner. Maximize the speed as we start to go uphill. And notice how we did not track out all the way to the left. Why? Because we have to compromise here. We're setting up now for a very technical series of corners called the attitudes. So we can't afford to get all the way to the left because we'd have to quickly scoot back all the way to the right. So I go about 2/3 of the way to the left, gradually make my way back up the hill to the right, and now we're already at maximum braking going uphill, so we'll be slowing down in a hurry. And notice again, I don't get all the way to the right. You can see that brake marker there, the one brake marker. You can also see the flag station directly ahead of that. You don't have enough time to move back all the way to the right. So if you're driving the full track configuration, you'd be coming at this from a different angle, and you would move all the way to the right. But in the outer loop course, you have to sacrifice the exit of Witchcraft by not tracking out, and you have to sacrifice your entry of the attitudes by not getting back all the way to the right. But it doesn't really lose too much speed here. We're going 65. We're turning in pretty sharp. We're trailing off the brakes. We're almost to zero brakes. And now we're going to run all over this first attitude curb. This is called the first attitude. Notice that we're almost 2 wheels in the dirt there, but it's not upsetting to the car because you're going relatively slow and you have a lot of banking there, which gives you a good amount of grip. You want to remain to the left here through the first attitude. And then you want to turn the wheel again sharply back to the right and run both right wheels over the second attitude. See how the car is all the way up on that curb? And then we head downhill toward the final attitude called bad attitude. This one has a curb as well, as you can see. You can run over the first half of it or so in pretty much any car. If you're in a real compliant soft car, you can run over the entire curb and you can almost hit that cone on the left. In this car, it's pretty stiff, so I try to run over about half of the curb. It's also banked, so you get good traction on the exit of here. And then you're going to track out all the way to the second candy strip on the exit of the attitudes. So that's a pretty challenging sequence of corners. Let's back it up a little bit and watch it at full speed. And you'll start to get a sense for what it will look like out of your windshield. Full speed, ready? So brush the brakes off, turn in nice and smooth, get close to the curb, full throttle for a second, then you go up the hill, full braking, turn in sharp to the left, run over the curb, back hard to the right, run over that curb with both right wheels, back to the left, kiss the curb on the left track, all the way out to the right-hand side. And there we have it. Next corner, called Tuala turn. We just went through that. And I'm going to pause that and we'll back it up. All right, so we've exited the attitudes. We're all the way out on the candy stripes. We've got a nice straightaway here. We'll be picking up speeds of upwards of 100 miles per hour. Tuala turn is also a fairly challenging corner because you can approach it in one of two different ways. I like to approach this corner by running over the curb on the left. Notice the brake markers here on the right-hand side. Again, I don't look at those. I just notice them peripherally, but you also have a flag worker station on the left. You'll notice that in your field of view as you approach the corner, that flag worker station moves up into the left of your field of view out of your windshield. Those kinds of markers are the things that your brain can process very effectively because they're immovable objects, but you're moving in space toward them. You can notice peripherally how those objects are going beyond your field of vision. That helps you determine your turn-in point. So that's why I say keep your eyes up, scan them left and right, make sure that you're tracking things to the left side of the corner on the inside, because that's where you want the car to go anyway. So you'd rather look where you want the car to go rather than looking to the opposite side of the track over at the braking stations. Now, we're going to head into this curb. You notice I turned in a little bit early because the curb is graduated. If you hit the curb on the entry fairly early, right in here, relatively smooth gradient. If you come in later and do a classic late apex and you hit the curb a little bit more straight on at a more obtuse angle, your car will get more upset because it gets steeper the further this curb goes. So you want to kind of use it as a ramp and run up the side of it. And there you can see I'm only using about the first third of the curb. In my Boxster, I run all the way over this curb because the car's softer and it can absorb that bump a little bit better without upsetting. In this car, I have to be a little bit more careful. So I'm using only the first third of it. Now on the exit of this, you notice we're going pretty darn quick here, 77. The key with this corner is really to get on the throttle really quickly, track all the way out to these candy strips. I'm on the second. Sometimes I'll use the third. There we go. I hit the third. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of candy strips. Most people, as you can see, kind of skid out. If they skid, they hit the first one. Those are from the drifters, by the way. I like to run all the way out to the second or third one, which gets fairly bumpy, but look how much more track that you've created and unlocked by using these track out rumble strips. Essentially, you've gotten almost a full car width of extra track, which lets you get to throttle that much faster. Let's back this up and we will watch that again. Okay, on the approach, the braking is medium. It's a short braking zone. You're going to slow down from about 100 down to the high 70s. You can carry 70 miles per hour plus through this corner in most cars. So let's watch it at full speed. Brake, off the brakes, use the curb, track all the way out full throttle, use the third set of rumble strips if you can. All right, now we're approaching one of the best corners in the whole track called Clubhouse 13. You're going to track all the way out on the exit. That's the main point, and I'll show you this frame by frame because it's fun. Okay. We just exited Tooele turn, which is turn 11 on the outer loop. You can already see we have brake markers on this corner. We have 4 of them. Wow. 4 on the right-hand side here. Then we go to the 3 and 2 and the 1. Now, this corner is fast. It has banking. It has a curb on the left, which you can slightly run over. As you can see here, I'm going to barely kiss that curb. But the key with this corner is the exit. Forget about the candy stripe on the right. As you come around this corner, pretend it doesn't exist because you have this huge amount of track. It's almost like they built a parking lot out here. It's a big rectangle. This is an extension of the track, all of this area. So you can run wide of the candy stripe and pretend this track is 20 feet long, wider than it is. So that means you can get to throttle sooner. You're exiting at here's 76 miles per hour. Look, that's where most people track out to. That's it. That means they can't possibly be going 77 here. They'd be going about 72 because they'd run out of track, right? I'm going to pretend that track doesn't exist. Run all the way over at full throttle. And now look, almost the whole car is wide of that candy strip. We've just increased the track by almost 6 feet. And that allows a really, really fast exit. If you do this technique, you will gain on people so fast on the exit of this corner. You will shock them. Now, as you go full throttle, you're coming into the final corner, which is called one of the last corners, right? Called Wind Up, turn 14. But let's back up real quick and watch the Clubhouse corner 13 at full speed so you can see the entirety of it. So hard brakes, turn in, get down in the banking, but track all the way out, way past those gators. Now we're approaching Wind Up 14. Most people tend to overdo this corner. They get too far out to the left. Look where we are now. We're going 72. This corner is a real slow right-hand long corner, more than 90 degrees. It's actually almost like probably 140 degrees. If you go all the way out to the left, you've wasted so much time and you don't need to. It just creates more distance. Anytime you're turning the steering wheel, you're slowing the car down. I'd rather see you go a little bit more, a third of the way over from the right. Go full throttle as long as you can. Give maximum braking. And then as you get off the brakes, gradually you turn in and essentially ride this curb around the corner. We're going 53 miles per hour. It's a pretty slow, boring ride. If you went way out to the left, though, you'd still be going about 53, 54, but you will have increased the distance by probably 40 feet. So it's a waste of time and waste of space. I'd rather ride the curb on the inside and just be patient. Look at the throttle here. You're just sort of maintenance throttle all the way around this thing. And as you come around the exit, you can start applying full throttle. And you can give a nice burst of full throttle there toward the final corner called release, which is turn 15. I like to carry full throttle anytime I can, and it's called hustling the car. Just give a burst of full throttle any chance you get. The amount of time you spend at full throttle is really the difference maker around any track. So as we come around this last corner, I like to tap the brake fairly hard, but for a short duration. And that allows the car to pivot and rotate more. It puts a little bit more weight on the front wheels as you start to turn in. And you can get the car to really turn harder to the left, more quickly, more efficiently. I'd rather get that rotation done early in the corner because this one sets up a 3/4 of a mile straightaway. Let's then get down in the banking on the left, because it does have some good positive banking. So I get in a little bit earlier than most people, but I hold this down because it's banked and you have a lot of traction. We're going 60. We're already at like almost 75% throttle. There's, the apex. Before that cone is the apex. And again, don't look at cones. They move. Look at your landmarks and your visual reference points. On this corner, what you want to do is feed in full throttle a little bit sooner than you think. The reason for that, you've got good banking here. See how we're kind of now headed uphill as we're drifting up the track? You got a ton of traction. You pick up more traction as you exit. And now we're going all the way out to these two candy stripes. Most people stop right here and they track out and then they straighten the wheel. So they have to be going slower than this by definition. I'd much rather go full throttle sooner and use every centimeter of the track on the exit. I'm running over the first rumble strip, then the second, maintaining that, straightening the hands, holding full throttle. We're already going 80 miles per hour, so we're going to catapult down this nice straightaway, which brings us to the end of the tutorial, except for I'd love to back this up one last time and let you see that sequence at full speed. All right, we're going to go all the way back here real quick. We're going to watch 13, 14, 15 in sequence. One last time. Full brakes, get in hard on the left, track all the way out. Get about a third of the way over, brake hard, ride the rail around the inside of the track, give full throttle as you exit. Hit the brake as you turn the car to rotate, get down in that banking, hold it, start accelerating full throttle, track all the way out on the second rumble strip, get your maximum speed, have a blast on this long straightaway, wave to the flag workers, have a good time. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial.